Whew, well, oh, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am Bios Ramos, and the Dolphins lost today, 11-21, and it wasn't such a great game defensively. We cannot contain Cam Newton. That is the moral of the story, and we're gonna jump more into that now. So let's jump straight into the box score. We have Ryan Fitzpatrick leading the Dolphins in passing. He's the only guy who played quarterback today. 20 for 30, 191 yards, 3 interceptions, and we're going to get into those interceptions later. He was sacked once for a loss of 9 yards. And then when we look at the Patriots, we have Cam Newton going 15 for 19, 155 yards, no TDs, no interceptions, and sacked twice for a loss of 15 yards. So when we look at Miami's rushing attack, not too many carries for Matt Breida, which was kind of shocking. Early on in the game, obviously went a lot heavy with Jordan Howard, Miles Gaskin, and Patrick Blair was in the backfield, but he didn't get any carries. He did get some receptions, but we'll go over that in a bit. But Miles Gaskin led the Dolphins with 9 carries for 40 yards, and then we have Matt Breida with 9 carries, 22 yards. Ryan Fitzpatrick 5 carries, 18 yards, and then Jordan Howard 8 carries, 7 yards, 1 yard, and that's it's not good. He was averaging less than a yard per carry. But Howard, he had not the best runs. Some of them were stuffed in the backfield. Some others were, he got contact in the backfield and then got an extra 2 or 3 yards, then getting a loss of 2 or 3 yards. So give or take with that one. But when we look at the Patriots, I almost said the Panthers because I saw Cam Newton's name. Cam Newton had 15 carries for 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Then Sony Michel was second with 10 carries, 37 yards. And 1 touchdown. Those are the only scores that the Patriots had. And then Rex Burkhead had 7 carries, 32 yards. J.J. Taylor with 4 carries, 28 yards. Julian Edelman 1 carry with 23 yards. And then 5 carries from James White for 22 yards. So the rushing defense for the Dolphins wasn't that great because we allowed 217 yards. And meanwhile, the Patriots allowed only 87 rushing yards. So not a lot of offensive production for the Dolphins, which is pretty upsetting. So our receiving leader was Devontae Parker, 4 receptions, 47 yards, on 4 targets. That was good, but I'm pretty sure he didn't. I'm pretty sure he dropped one, so I think that might be wrong there. Preston Williams, 2 receptions for 41 yards. Mike Gesicki, 3 receptions for 30 yards. Miles Gaskin, 4 receptions, 26 yards. Jakeem Grant, 3 receptions, 25 yards. Isaiah Ford, 2 receptions, 13 yards. Patrick Blair, 2 receptions, 9 yards. Not a lot of offensive production, only 191 yards. But you guys see the Patriots receiving, they didn't have much, but whoever did contribute had a lot of production. So we have Julian Edelman, 5 receptions, 57 yards. N'Keal Harry, 5 receptions, 39 yards. James White, 3 receptions, 30 yards. Ryan Izzo, 1 reception, 25 yards. That was a big play by him. And J.J. Taylor, 1 reception, 4 yards. So 155 total yards on 15 receptions to the Dolphins. 20 receptions for 191 yards. Now, when we look at the fumbles, Ryan Fitzpatrick fumbled one, but he recovered it. And when we look at the Patriots fumbles, Jameer Byrd on the first punt of the game muffed the punt because Mac Hollins kind of pushed J.C. Jackson into him after he called the fair catch, but that's not an illegal play. You can do that as long as you, as the kicking team, are not affecting the fair catch. Like, you're not the one hitting the player and whatnot. So Mac Collins did do that, and it forced the fumble, but luckily J.C. Jackson hopped on it for the Patriots. But then N'Keal Harry fumbled the ball, caught the ball, was going towards the end zone, and then Jerome Baker was the last guy to get there and got a good tackle in, and he lost control of the ball. Ball ended up going towards the out of bounds, which is great, phenomenal for the Dolphins because I was following one of the interceptions thrown by Fitzpatrick, and it definitely helped the Dolphins out in the sense of not allowing points off of our turnovers. So that was good for the Dolphins there. Now, let's go over some defensive stats. I'm not going to get too deep into how many tackles each person had because I guess Saban Howard had one. I'm not going to talk about that, So Jerome Baker led the team with 16 total tackles. 13 of them were solo. He had 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 QB hit. Then following him was Brandon Jones, the rookie, had 10 total tackles, 7 solo, and it was quite surprising because he was on the depth chart. If you didn't watch the video yesterday on the depth chart, I went over the depth chart, and he was like last of all the safeties on the depth chart, and yet he managed to be on the field a lot today, which was great to see because I love having, those young guys out there who could make an impact on the game, and no matter whether or not, they're deep on the depth chart or not, they're going to get some playing time, especially in this first game. Lots of rotation happening on there. So it's great to see him produce well. Christian Wilkins, 6 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 pass deflections, which were awesome to see, and 1 QB hit. Then we have Cal Van Noy, 5 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for a loss. There was a read option by Cam Newton. Cal Van Noy kind of bit, but then he was the one who also made up on the play and secured the tackle, which was great to see him not give up on that play. Following him, we have Bob Mccain, 5 total, 4 solo, 1 pass deflection. And then I'm going to just go over a couple key plays. Landon Roberts, 1 tackle for a loss. Devon Gauchow, 1 tackle for a loss. Shaq Lawson, 1 QB hit. And that's about it for the defensive side of the ball. Unfortunately, no interceptions, no fumble recoveries, even though the fumble that happened ended up going towards the Dolphins because it was a touchback out of the end zone, which was great because it stopped them. It allowed the game not to get too far away from the Dolphins. Now, defensively for the Patriots, 9 total tackles for Adrian Phillips, 8 solo, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass deflection. Chase Winovich had 6 total, 4 solo, 1 tackle for a loss, and 1 QB hit. Stephon Gilmore, 5 total, 4 solo, and 1 pass deflection. And he had 2 PI calls on him, and he also ended up with an interception, which I'm going to go over after this segment. Devin McCourty, 5 total, 3 solo. Let's see what other key plays some players did. John Simon had 1 tackle for a loss with 2 QB hits. Brandon Copeland had 1 tackle for a loss. J.C. Jackson had 2 pass deflections. Joe Juan Williams had 1 pass deflection. Let's see. Last one. Oh, we got 2 more. Derek Rivers had a sack, tackle for a loss, and a QB hit. And Dietrich Wise Jr. had 1 QB hit. So that's some things to take away from the Patriots' defense. Now, what they did take away was the ball from the Dolphins. 3 interceptions on the day. Stephon Gilmore got 1, Adrian Phillips got 1, and J.C. Jackson got 1 to seal the game. And it was quite unfortunate, to be honest. The Stephon Gilmore one, give or take, it could have been PI. Preston Williams kind of slipped on his route, and kind of looked like Gilmore kind of pushed him a little bit, and that was quite far off the line of scrimmage. So honestly, it was, I don't know, it was tough. It was tough to see that one. Adrian Phillips was just like, Fitz read the defense wrong and threw it pretty much right into his hands. And then the J.C. Jackson one, another questionable call on the interception. Some contact on Gesicki on the end of the game in the end zone, and didn't end up getting called, which is, I don't know. It could have not. It's for both of those interceptions for Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, could have gone either way. But J.C. Jackson was just behind the play and ended up catching the ball, try to kill some time in the end zone. So, unfortunate. Now, Miami had no kick returns. New England had no kick returns. Punt returns, Jakeem Grant had 1 for a loss of 3 yards, which was quite silly, in my opinion. He caught the ball at about, I would say, about the 10-yard line or so. And he was kind of trying to be shifty and make some moves, but, he should have just tried beating them with his speed, going straight down the field. And that was unfortunate for the Dolphins because he lost 3 yards on that return. Jameer Byrd, like I mentioned earlier, he was the one who muffed the punt. After that, Julian Edelman came out to secure the punt, so he didn't really return anything. And then Miami kicking field goals. Jason Sanders had 1 for a long of 46. Nick Folk missed his field goal and then made all 3 of his extra points. So then now when we look at punting, final stat lines that we're going to go over is Matt Hack 3 for 152 yards, average of 50.7, 1 touchback, no in the 20, and longest was 58 yards. And then Jake Bailey for the New England Patriots, 3 punts, 119 yards, 39.7 average, zero touchbacks. 3 of them were in the 20, and his longest was 55. So, now that we went over all the stats, I just want to really hone in on the defense. And before I do any of that, let's go over the AFC East standings after all 4 teams played against one another today. Buffalo and New England were the winners. And then New York and Miami were the losers of this week. And next week we play the Buffalo Bills. So something to look forward towards. I want to talk about some things. So Miami did not control the possession well. New England definitely dominated us on the possession and time of possession with 34 minutes, 49 seconds to Miami's 25 minutes and 11 seconds, which was not good enough to get us to win. First downs, Miami had 20, New England had 29. Turnovers, Miami had 3, New England had 1. And then total yards of offense, this is the kicker right here. 269 yards for Miami and then 357 for the Patriots. So most of their yards came from running the ball, and that was well coached by McDaniels by having, Cam Newton be the facilitator of this offense for the Patriots. Just because you have such a mobile quarterback, you're allowed to do so much more in this offense for the Patriots, which is good for them, bad for the Dolphins. They had lots of play action plays that Cam Newton ended up just running out of the pocket for, and that hurt the Dolphins a lot because not only you couldn't get a chance to really get your hands on the ball as a secondary, as a defense, and then the clock keeps running and running and running, and you don't give your offense a chance to get on the field with a lot of time remaining. So that definitely did hurt the Dolphins in that sense. But it's unfortunate. Now, when we look at some penalties, and I mentioned this earlier, we do not want to get a lot of penalties to hurt us. We had 3 penalties for 35 yards, and 4 penalties for 35 yards. And compared to the Patriots with 3 penalties for 47 yards, and all 3 of them were, I think, pass interference. I know 2 of them were pass interference from just Stephon Gilmore alone. It's unfortunate, but luckily those penalties, they did hurt us, but I don't think that was the cause of our loss. It was mainly our defense and not containing Cam Newton, which was a huge focal point of mine going into the video I made yesterday, that we need to stop Cam Newton. Plain and simple. We cannot allow him to run out of the pocket and make extra plays that were not necessarily there before. It was all just him reading and doing stuff. So it's unfortunate. And next week we have to gear up for the Buffalo Bills, who have a similar quarterback playing style, he throws the ball way more than Cam Newton, but he's definitely a mobile quarterback. He is someone who, if he needs to get out of the pocket, he could and do a lot. So it's something that the Dolphins need to focus on going into next week, is trying to stop the quarterback from getting outside the pocket and beating them with your legs. Because we wanted him to beat us with his arm, and he did the quite opposite, which was the biggest problem. And within that problem, the clock keeps running, and you're losing time and time and time. So going into next week, got to stop the running game. That has to be the 100% focal point. The Bills have a good rushing attack, but it's not as good as I would say as the Patriots was today. But this is the first game. Got to take it with a grain of salt. Next game, we could have a huge game from the Dolphins or a huge game for the Bills. Who knows? It goes either way, and it's tough. It's tough seeing your team lose, but first game, grain of salt, and next week we will come back and hopefully do a lot better than we did this previous week. It was interesting not to see any fans in the stands for the game. I saw this funny tweet, and it was like, wow, I can't believe the Patriots, after they're such bandwagoners, because after Brady leaves, there's literally no one in the stands, and it was just funny because they're not allowing fans at the games there. Next week though, in Miami, they're gonna allow, I believe, 13,000 fans, if I'm not wrong, in Hard Rock Stadium, and whoever goes, if you're a fan who goes to the games, have season tickets maybe, or just going to the game, get loud, get loud. Unfortunately, I'm not going to any games in Miami, at least this year, for the foreseeable future. But if you are attending next week's game, get loud. Show support of your team. This is just the first game of 16 other, 15 other ones at this point. And maybe more to come if we do have a good season, make the playoffs. But that's more down the road to talk about. But yeah, we cannot win in a game where Fitzpatrick throws 3 interceptions. That's impossible. Like, if Fitzpatrick didn't throw these interceptions, this game would be a whole different story. Dolphins could have won, but those 3 interceptions proved to be crucial because those are 3 times you're giving up the ball. And luckily we didn't allow the Patriots to score off those, but if they were to score off those, it would have been even worse of a game. So luckily the defense did hold their end on those situations, but you never want to see your team give up the ball. And unfortunately we did that 3 times. So that's about it. We tried running the ball pretty good, but nothing, just real short runs, nothing real crazy happening. Couple little ones that busted out, but it got shut down after like 10 yards or so. So it's unfortunate, but regroup, come back next week as a better team, and hopefully the Dolphins could do that, because if they do that, we'll be in a good position to possibly beat the Bills. The Bills are a pretty good team. A lot of people are taking them to win the AFC East, but I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. The Bills and the Patriots are looking like the possible front runners after what they did today, but just got to let the season go on and see what happens. But that's about it for me, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a nice thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, click the post notification bell option, and check out my Twitter and Instagram at @ByAustinRamos. I was tweeting during the first half of the game. At halftime, I went live on Instagram just to talk about the game and other games around the league with Bryce. So Bryce is featured on my Game Picks video. And in the future, I think Tool Bags Up, today they did it, a live stream on Instagram as well of fantasy, like who you should and who you shouldn't start last second. Maybe some changes have been made since the last video we made. So just keep your eyes out for that. So, but if you did enjoy this video, like I mentioned before, like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And lastly, even though it was a tough loss, fins up.